Let's take a look at exactly what we mean by consumer surplus. So I'll read this over and we'll look at the picture as we go. So the difference between the total amount a consumer is willing to spend and the total amount that he actually does spend, that's called the surplus. We can write it like this: the total amount that you're willing to spend minus the total amount that you actually do expend, that's called the consumer surplus, and it measures the amount of surplus money that results when a purchase is made at a price lower than the maximum the consumer is willing to pay. So if you look in the picture here, look at the rectangle here. So suppose that the consumer is actually willing to pay a maximum of this much right here. That's how much the consumer is willing to pay. But the consumer really has to pay only this much here at the equilibrium point. So that amount right there, that is the surplus. So if we measure like the total maximum here, all the way to these maximums here, to this equilibrium point, measure that area, we're going to get what we actually call the consumer's surplus. And here's the definition, the mathematical definition of consumer surplus is down here. So it's defined to be the definite integral from 0 to x sub e. Now look at the picture up here. Where are we going? We're going from 0 to x sub e. Now remember, x is the quantity of items demanded. So we're going to go from 0 to x sub e of what? Well, look at this. This d sub x minus p, all right, this is the height of the rectangle, right? Look at the height of the rectangle, times dx. And then dx, that's the infinitesimally small delta x. So you can see what we're getting here is over this interval, we're getting the height of the rectangle times the base. So we're really getting the area under that curve. So the consumer surplus is defined as this integral, and it measures the amount of surplus money that results when a purchase is made at a price that's lower than the maximum the consumer was willing to pay. Here's an example of what we mean here. Suppose that the demand function for a particular product is 750 minus x squared, and we're given the equilibrium point to be 15,300. So let's find the consumer surplus. So here's our definition, right? The consumer surplus is the integral from 0 to x sub e, and we're given x sub e, right? That's going to be 15 of d of x minus pe. And we're given PE in this case. PE is 300. So here's the integral we're looking for. The consumer surplus, we're going to go from 0 to x, which is 15. The demand function, which is 750 minus x squared, minus P of E, and P of E is 300 dx. So this will give us, what do we get here? We can simplify a little bit. So we're going to have what? 750 minus 300 is 450 minus x squared dx. This will give us, okay, let's integrate. So we'll get 450x minus x cubed over 3 from 0 to 15. Let's put in the upper limit. So we'll get 450 times 15 minus 15 cubed over 3 minus, now you can see this here, right? If you put 0 in here, you get 0. 0 in here, you get 0. So we'll just get a 0 here, and we can make this computation. And when I do that on Wolfram Alpha, I got 5625. So what we're saying here is that the amount of surplus money to the consumer is $5,625.